Captain Deho sat in his command chair, watching the stars through the main screen of the research vessel Harmony's Edge. The ship was 3 months into a survey mission, mapping unknown regions of space for the Human Federation. It was quiet, work, but Deho liked it that way. After years of military service, he found peace in the endless black of space. "Captain," called Jiho from the communication station. His voice carried a note of concern that made Deho turn around. "I'm picking up something strange. It looks like a distress signal." Yuna, the second in command, moved closer to Jiho's. "Station." Her face showed worry as she read the data. "The signal is weak and broken. It's not using any human communication format." Deho stood up and walked over to them. "Can you clean it up? Make it clearer?" Jiho worked his controls for several minutes. The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Finally, a crackling voice came through the speakers. The words were in Galactic Standard, but the accent was unlike anything they had heard before. "Anyone, help us. Ship dying. Many wounded. Please respond," the message repeated, several times before cutting to static. Deho felt a chill run down his spine. Someone was in trouble and they were asking for help. "Where is the signal coming from?" he asked. Haiwan, the tactical officer, checked her sensors. "About 6 light hours away. The signal is old, Captain. By the time we get there, it might be too late." Yuna crossed her arms. "We don't know who sent this message. It could be a trap. Pirates sometimes use fake distress calls to lure ships into ambushes." Deho considered this. Yuna was right to be careful. Space was dangerous, and humans were still newcomers to the galaxy. Many alien species saw them as weak or easy targets, but the voice in the message sounded genuinely desperate. "Set course for the signal source," Deho ordered. "Maximum speed." "Captain," Yuna protested, "we should at least report this to Fleet Command first. By the time we get orders back, whoever sent that message will be dead," Deho replied firmly. "We can't ignore people in need." The Harmony's Edge changed direction and jumped to faster-than-light speed. The journey took 4 hours. During that time, Deho gathered his senior staff to discuss what they might find. Dr. Minji, the ship's doctor and xenobiologist, looked worried. "If there are wounded aliens, I might not know how to help them. Every species has different biology." "Do your best," Deho told her. "That's all anyone can ask." Engineer Taewon spoke up. "If their ship is damaged, we might be able to help with repairs. Human engineering is different from most alien technology, but the basics are usually the same." When they arrived at the location, what they found shocked everyone. A massive alien ship floated dead in space. It was twice the size of the Harmony's Edge and built like a fortress. The hull was dark metal covered in sharp angles and weapon ports, but the ship was clearly damaged. Burn marks covered its surface, and several sections looked like they had been torn open by powerful weapons. "I've never seen a ship like that," Yuna whispered. Haiwan ran a scan. "No life signs. Wait. I'm reading faint power signatures in the central sections. Someone might still be alive in there." Jiho tried to make contact. "Unknown vessel, this is the human ship Harmony's Edge. We received your distress call. Please respond." For long minutes, there was only silence. Then the speakers crackled to life. "Human ship?" The voice was deep and rough, speaking Galactic Standard with a heavy accent. "This is War Captain Veltar of the Corvani battleship Iron Thunder. You actually came?" "We're here to help," Deho responded. "What is your situation?" "Our ship is dying. Main power is gone. Life support is failing. We have many wounded." The alien's voice carried both pain and surprise. "But why did humans come? Your species is known to avoid conflict." Daeho felt a flash of anger at the assumption, but he pushed it down. "We came because you asked for help. That's what people do." There was another long pause. "I do not understand." "We are strangers to you. We are Corvani. We are warriors. Why would you risk your small ship to help us?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Daeho said simply. "Can we come aboard to assist your wounded?" "You would board a Corvani warship? Even damaged, we could easily overpower your crew." Yuna shot Daeho a look that said, "I told you so." But the captain's expression remained calm. "If you wanted to hurt us, you wouldn't have asked for help," he replied. "We're sending over a medical team and engineers." As Dr. Minji and Taiwan prepared to board the alien ship, Veltar's voice came through again. "Human captain, I must warn you. We did not come here by choice. We are fleeing from something terrible. The Devourers found our homeworld. They destroyed everything. We barely escaped with these refugees." "Devourers?" Daeho asked. "Machines, ancient and hungry. They consume entire star systems, turning everything into more of themselves. They have been hunting us for days. If they find us here..." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood the threat, but Daeho's voice remained steady. "Then we'll deal with that when it happens. Right now, people need help." Veltar made a sound. That might have been laughter or disbelief. "You truly are in strange species, humans. Very well. We will lower our shields. But know this. If the Devourers come, your small ship will not survive." "Let us worry about that," Daeho said. As the medical and engineering teams prepared to transfer to the Corvani ship, Yuna approached the captain. "Sir, are you sure about this? We're one research vessel against unknown enemies." Daeho looked at the damaged alien ship on the screen. Somewhere inside were wounded beings who had asked for help. The choice seemed obvious to him. "Yuna, if we run every time something seems dangerous, we'll never make any friends out here. Sometimes you have to take risks to do what's right." The second-in-command nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. But I still think we should be ready to leave quickly if needed." "Agreed. Keep the engines warm and the sensors watching for trouble." As the first shuttle launched toward the alien ship, Daeho wondered what they would find inside. The Corvani sounded like a proud and powerful species, but something had hurt them badly. Whatever these Devourers were, they had managed to damage. A warship that looked like it could fight off an entire fleet. But that was a problem for later. Right now, people needed help, and that was enough reason for any human to act. Dr. Minji stepped through the airlock of the Corvani ship and immediately noticed the difference. The corridors were huge, built for beings much larger than humans. The air was thick and warm, with a metallic smell that made her nose wrinkle. Emergency lighting cast red shadows on the dark walls. A massive figure emerged from the shadows to greet them. War Captain Veltar was over 7 feet tall, with thick gray skin and arms like tree trunks. His uniform was torn and stained with dark blood. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "You are smaller than I expected," he said, looking down at Dr. Minji and Engineer Taewon. "Are you certain you can help us?" "Size doesn't matter when someone needs medical care," Minji replied, adjusting her medical kit. "Show me to your wounded." Veltar led them through corridors filled with damage. Pipes leaked strange fluids, and sparks flew from broken control panels. The ship groaned around them like a dying animal. In the medical bay, Minji found something that broke her heart. Dozens of Corvani lay on the floor, some moaning in pain, others silent and still. Their injuries were unlike anything she had seen before. Burns covered their gray skin, but these weren't from normal fire or energy weapons. The wounds seemed to eat away at the flesh, spreading slowly like acid. "What did this to them?" she asked, kneeling beside a young Corvani warrior. "Devourer weapons," Veltar explained. "They use energy that corrupts living tissue. Our medical supplies ran out days ago. Many have already died." Minji began scanning the wounded with her medical tricorder. The readings were confusing at first, but she began to understand Corvani biology. Their thick skin and dense muscles made them incredibly strong, but also made them vulnerable to certain types of energy. The Devourer weapons seemed designed to exploit this weakness. Meanwhile, Taewon was examining the ship's damage with a team of Corvani engineers. The aliens watched him work with curious expressions. Human tools were much smaller than their equipment, but Taewon moved through the damaged systems with quick efficiency. "Your power core is still functional," he told the chief engineer, a female Corvani named Carden. "But the energy distribution network is completely fried. These burn patterns, what kind of weapons cause this?" "Adaptive plasma cannons," Carden replied sadly. "The Devourers scan our shields and weapons, then change their attacks to penetrate our defenses. We fought for hours, but they learned our tactics too quickly." Taewon frowned as he studied the damage. "Your shields are impressive, much stronger than anything humans have built, but they're too rigid. They don't adapt fast enough." "And human shields do?" Carden asked with obvious doubt. "We don't really have shields like this," Taewon admitted. "Human ships rely more on speed and maneuverability. We dodge attacks instead of trying to absorb them." Back on the Harmony's edge, Captain Daeho received an urgent message from Hwon at the tactical station. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures approaching our position. Multiple contacts, moving at high speed." "How long until they arrive?" Daeho asked, feeling his stomach tighten. 4 hours, maybe less." Daeho immediately contacted the Corvani ship. "Veltar, we have company coming. Large energy signatures, approaching fast." The Corvani captain's voice carried fear and resignation. "The Devourers have found us. Human captain, you must leave immediately. Take your ship and flee. There is no point in both our peoples dying here." "How many ships are coming?" "My sensors show 12 Devourer vessels. Each one is larger than your ship. You cannot fight them." Daeho looked around his bridge. His crew was listening to every word. He could see the fear in their eyes, but also something else. Determination. They knew what he was thinking. "We're not leaving," Daeho said finally. The silence that followed was so complete that Daeho could hear his own heartbeat. Then Veltar's voice came through, filled with disbelief. "Did you not hear me? 12 ships. They will destroy you in minutes." "Maybe," Daeho replied. "But we're not leaving people behind to die." This is madness. In our culture, tactical retreat in the face of overwhelming odds is considered wise. There is no shame in fleeing from an unwinnable battle. Yuna stepped closer to the captain. "Sir, he's right. We can't fight 12 enemy ships. We should report this to Fleet Command and come back with reinforcements." Daeho considered this. It was the logical choice, the smart choice, the safe choice. But as he thought about the wounded Corvani in their medical bay and the refugees hiding in the damaged ship, he knew he couldn't leave. Sometimes the logical choice isn't the right choice. he said. "We're staying." Dr. Minji's voice came through the comm system. "Captain, I've made some progress with the wounded. Their biology is fascinating. They're incredibly tough, but the Devourer weapons target their specific cellular structure. I think I can help them, but I need more time." "You'll have it, Daeho." "Promised." Taewon added his report. "Captain, I've been studying their shield technology. It's much more advanced than ours, but it has a weakness. It can't adapt quickly enough to changing attack patterns. If we could modify it somehow..." An idea began forming in Daeho's mind. "Veltar, your shields are powerful but inflexible. Our ships are weak but adaptable. What if we combine them somehow?" "I do not understand. Your ship provides the heavy firepower and strong defenses. Our ships act as escorts, using speed and unpredictability to confuse the enemy's adaptive systems." Veltar was quiet for a long moment. "This is not how Corvani fight. We meet our enemies head-on with honor and strength. And how has that worked against the Devourers?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Finally, Veltar spoke again. "We have lost every battle. They adapt to our tactics too quickly. But your plan, it is chaos. Undisciplined. No Corvani." "Commander would approve such a strategy." "I'm not Corvani," Daeho said simply. "I'm human, and sometimes chaos is exactly what you need." As the two crews began working together to prepare for the coming battle, cultural differences became obvious. The Corvani were disciplined and hierarchical. Orders flowed down from the top, and no one questioned their superiors. But the humans worked differently. Everyone contributed ideas, regardless of rank. Sungjai, the ship's strategic officer, worked with Corvani tactical experts to develop new battle plans. The aliens were amazed when the young human questioned their assumptions and suggested completely different approaches. "In your military, does everyone give advice to commanders?" asked a Corvani officer. "The best ideas can come from anyone," Sungjai replied. "A junior technician might see something that an admiral misses." This concept was revolutionary to the Corvani. In their society, wisdom was assumed to increase with rank and age. The idea that a lower-ranking individual might have better insights was almost unthinkable. As the hours passed, both species began to understand each other better. The Corvani saw that humans were not weak, just different. Where Corvani saw insurmountable obstacles, humans saw puzzles to solve. Where Corvani accepted defeat as inevitable, humans refused to give up, and the humans began to respect Corvani's strength and honor. These were not savage barbarians, but proud warriors with a strict code of ethics. They fought not for conquest, but to protect their people and their way of life. With 2 hours left before the Devourers arrived, Veltar made an announcement to both crews. "I have fought many battles in my life. I have won great victories and suffered terrible defeats. But I have never seen anything like what you humans are doing today. You risk everything for people you just met. This is not logical. It is not tactical. But perhaps it is something better." The alliance between human and Corvani was born not from treaties or negotiations, but from a simple human refusal to abandon people in need. As both crews prepared for the battle ahead, they knew they were facing impossible odds. But for the first time since the Devourers began their hunt, the Corvani had something they had almost lost: hope. Seungjai spread the tactical display across the conference table, showing the approaching Devourer fleet. 12 massive ships moved through space like hungry predators, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. Around the table sat both human and Corvani officers, an unlikely mix of species trying to solve an impossible problem. Traditional tactics won't work, Sung-jae explained, pointing at the enemy formation. The Devourers learn from every engagement. They adapt their weapons and defenses based on how we attack them. Veltar leaned forward, his massive frame dwarfing the human furniture. Then how do we fight an enemy that becomes stronger each time we strike them? We don't give them time to adapt, Seong-jae replied. We hit them with so many different tactics at once that their systems overload trying to process everything. Corvani tactical officer named Borhan shook his head. This is chaos. Proper military doctrine requires coordinated strikes and clear command structure. What you suggest is madness. Maybe, Seong-jae admitted, but their computers are designed to counter logical military thinking. What if we deliberately act illogically? The room fell silent as both species considered this radical idea. Captain Daeho studied the tactical display, seeing possibilities where others saw only confusion. Explain your plan, he said. Sung-jae activated a simulation on the display. We use the Iron Thunder as our anchor point. Its shields and heavy weapons provide a defensive base. But instead of protecting it with a traditional escort formation, we scatter our ships randomly around the battlefield. That leaves the flanks exposed, protested Hyewon. Exactly. The Devourers will expect us to protect our weaknesses. When we don't, they'll waste time analyzing why. Meanwhile, our scattered ships attack from multiple angles using completely different tactics. Veltar stroked his chin thoughtfully. You want us to appear weak and disorganized? We want to appear unpredictable. Every time they adapt to one ship's attack pattern, another ship hits them with something completely different. In the engineering section, Yunbi was working with Corvani weapons specialists to modify their systems. The aliens watched in fascination as she connected human electromagnetic pulse generators to their plasma cannons. This should not work, muttered Carden, the Corvani chief engineer. Human technology is too primitive to interface with our systems. Primitive doesn't mean useless, Yunbi replied, adjusting the power flow. Sometimes simple solutions work better than complex ones. When she activated the modified weapon, the results surprised everyone. The human EMP technology disrupted the plasma field in a way that made the energy beam more chaotic and harder to predict. It was less powerful than the original Corvani weapon, but also much more difficult for adaptive systems to counter. Your people think differently than we do, Carden observed. Where we see perfection, you see possibilities for change. Yunbi smiled. Humans are never satisfied with good enough. We always think we can make things better. Meanwhile, Nari was giving flying lessons to Corvani pilots in the ship's simulator. The massive aliens could barely fit in the human-sized cockpits, but they watched her demonstrations with intense interest. Corvani tactics focus on formation flying and coordinated attacks, explained Thoklar, a veteran pilot. We maintain strict positions and follow predetermined flight paths. Nari shook her head. That makes you predictable. Watch this. She launched a simulation where she was outnumbered 3-1. Instead of following any recognizable tactical pattern, she flew erratically, changing direction and speed randomly. Her movements looked panicked and desperate, but every seemingly chaotic maneuver had a purpose. She drew enemy fire away from critical areas, forced opponents to waste ammunition, and gradually wore down their formation. This appears to be the flight pattern of a coward, Thoklar said, confused. It's the flight pattern of someone who wants to survive, Nari replied. In human military history, we learned that the most disciplined army doesn't always win. Sometimes it's the one that refuses to fight by the rules. Dr. Minji continued treating wounded Corvani, but she was also learning valuable information about their biology. As she worked, she explained her findings to both medical teams. Corvani physiology is incredibly robust, she said, scanning another patient. Your bones are twice as dense as human bones, and your muscle tissue can exert 3 times the force. But this strength comes with a weakness. What weakness? Asked Dr. Velkan, the Corvani medical officer. Your bodies are highly efficient, but not very adaptable. When the devourer weapons target your cellular structure, your immune system can't adjust quickly enough to counter the attack. And human immune systems can? Minji nodded. Humans evolved on a planet with constantly changing diseases and environmental threats. Our bodies learn to adapt quickly to new challenges. It's one of our survival traits. This revelation had implications beyond medicine. If human bodies could adapt faster than Corvani bodies, perhaps human thinking could adapt faster than Corvani military doctrine. The idea began spreading through both crews, changing how they viewed the coming battle. Captain Dae-ho toured the ship, talking to both human and Corvani crew members. He found Jong-soo, his senior helmsman, teaching a group of young Corvani refugees how to use human emergency equipment. The children are frightened, Jong-soo explained. I thought if they knew how to use our life support systems, they might feel safer. Dae-ho watched as Jong-soo patiently showed a small Corvani child how to activate an emergency beacon. The child's parents watched nervously, unsure whether to trust these strange aliens with their offspring. Captain, one of the Corvani parents, said hesitantly, why do your people care so much about strangers? We have heard that humans are individualistic, concerned only with themselves. Whoever told you that doesn't understand humans very well, Dae-ho replied. Yes, we value individual freedom and choice. But we also believe that everyone deserves help when they need it. Strong people protect weak people. That's just basic decency. The Corvani parent looked confused. But what do you gain from helping us? We cannot offer you wealth or territory in return. Dae-ho considered the question seriously. We gain the knowledge that we did the right thing. Sometimes that's enough. As preparation continued, more differences between the species became apparent. Corvani society was built on honor, hierarchy, and traditional values. They fought for glory, for their ancestors, and for the continuation of their bloodline. Humans fought for different reasons, for justice, for the protection of innocence, and sometimes simply because it was the right thing to do. But despite their differences, both species began to respect each other. The Corvani saw that human weakness was actually flexibility, and human chaos was actually creativity. The humans saw that Corvani rigidity was actually discipline, and Corvani aggression was actually protective instinct. Suomin, the science officer, made a crucial discovery while analyzing the Devourer ships. Captain, I've been studying the enemy vessels from long-range sensors. Their adaptive systems follow recognizable patterns. What kind of patterns? Dae-ho asked. They collect data on enemy tactics for approximately 10 minutes before making adaptations. If we could change our tactics faster than they can adapt, we stay ahead of their learning curve, Dae-ho finished. How fast can we change tactics? Human ships can alter their attack patterns in under 2 minutes, but it would require constant communication and coordination. Veltar joined the conversation. Corvani ships are not designed for such rapid tactical changes. Our systems are built for sustained, predictable combat. Then we don't change the Iron Thunder's tactics, Dae-ho realized. We use your ship as the constant factor while our ships provide the variables. The final piece of the strategy fell into place. The Corvani battleship would serve as an anchor, using its powerful weapons and shields to engage the enemy directly. The human ships would dart around the battlefield like irritating insects, constantly changing their attack methods to keep the Devourer's adaptive systems confused. It was a plan that combined the best of both species, Corvani strength and endurance, with human flexibility and creativity. Neither species could have developed this strategy alone, but together they had found a way to fight an seemingly unbeatable enemy. As the countdown to battle reached its final hour, both crews prepared in their own ways. The Corvani performed ritual combat ceremonies honoring their ancestors and preparing for glorious battle. The humans checked their equipment one last time and said goodbye to loved ones over long-range communications. Despite their different customs, both species shared one common feeling. They were no longer facing the Devourers alone. They had found unexpected allies in the darkness of space, and together they would make their stand. The Devourer fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a nightmare made real. 12 massive ships materialized in the darkness, their hulls black as space itself. Each vessel was larger than the Corvani battleship, covered in weapon ports that glowed with malevolent energy. They moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a single vast machine. "My ancestors preserve us," whispered Veltar as he watched the enemy fleet on his main screen. "They are even larger than before." Captain Deho studied the Devourer ships from the bridge of the Harmony's edge. The enemy vessels had no visible windows or external features that suggested living crews. They looked like they had been grown rather than built, their surfaces flowing smoothly from one section to another. "All ships, this is Captain Deho," he announced over the combined fleet communication channel. "Remember the plan. Stay unpredictable, change tactics every 2 minutes, and don't let them lock onto any pattern." The Devourer fleet began moving toward them in a perfect wedge formation. Long-range sensors showed energy building in their weapons systems. Whatever these machines were, they had come to destroy everything in their path. "Incoming transmission from the lead Devourer ship," reported Jiho. "Put it through," Deho ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was cold and mechanical, speaking Galactic Standard with perfect pronunciation. "Biological vessels detected. Resistance is inefficient. Surrender your technology and biological samples for processing. Compliance will result in quick termination." Veltar's response rumbled with anger. "We are Corvani. We do not surrender to machines." Corvani biological specifications recorded. "Combat patterns analyzed. Adaptation protocols initiated. Resistance will be overcome in 14.7 minutes. The transmission ended, and the Devourer ships opened fire. The first salvo was devastating. Plasma beams and energy torpedoes filled the space between the fleets with deadly light. The Iron Thunder raised its shields and returned fire with its massive plasma cannons. The Corvani ship's weapons struck the lead Devourer vessel, but the enemy's shields absorbed the impact easily. "Their shields are adapting to our weapons already," reported Carden from the Corvani engineering station. "Our plasma cannons are only operating at 60% effectiveness." "Time for the human ships to get involved," Deho said. "All vessels, begin attack pattern Alpha. Scatter formation, maximum chaos." The 4 human ships that had arrived in response to the distress call broke away from the Corvani battleship and spread across the battlefield. To the Devourer's sensors, it must have looked like the human fleet was falling apart in panic. Nari, piloting the fast courier ship Dancing Star, dove straight at the nearest Devourer vessel. Her ship was tiny compared to the enemy, but she flew it like it was part of her own body. At the last second, she rolled sideways and fired her modified pulse cannons at the Devourer's weapon ports. The human weapons were much weaker than Corvani plasma cannons, but they used completely different technology. The electromagnetic pulses disrupted the enemy's energy flow in ways their adaptive systems hadn't encountered before. "Direct hit," Nari reported. "Their port-side weapons are offline for—" "Never mind, they're adapting. Switching to pattern beta." Meanwhile, Young-Ho commanded the destroyer Swift Vengeance in a head-on attack against another Devourer ship. But instead of flying straight like a traditional military assault, he flew in a corkscrew pattern, spinning his ship while firing in seemingly random directions. The Devourer's defensive systems tried to predict where his ship would be, but Young-Ho's flight path was so erratic that their targeting computers couldn't establish a lock. His weapons fire looked wasteful and uncoordinated, but every shot hit precisely where he intended. The third human ship, the frigate Determined Hope under Captain Borum's command, attacked from long range using missile salvos. But these weren't normal guided missiles. Each one followed a different flight path, some taking direct routes while others curved and spiraled through space. The Devourer point defense systems could stop some of them, but not all. The fourth ship, the research vessel New Horizons, commanded by Captain Hagen, seemed to be running away from the battle. Its retreat looked cowardly, but it was actually drawing two Devourer ships away from the main engagement, forcing them to split their attention. For the first few minutes, the human tactics seemed to be working. The Devourer ships were taking damage, and their adaptive systems appeared confused by the chaotic human attack patterns. But the machines were learning. "Devourer ships are beginning to adapt to our tactics," Hywen reported. "They're predicting some of our movements now." "Switch to pattern Gamma," Deho ordered. "All ships change tactics immediately." The human fleet instantly shifted to new attack methods. Nari stopped her random dodging and began flying in perfect geometric patterns. Young-Ho switched from his spinning assault to careful, precise shots. Borum's missiles suddenly began following logical targeting priorities instead of random paths. The sudden change confused the Devourer systems again, but only briefly. Within minutes, they were adapting to the new patterns as well. "This isn't working," Yuna said grimly. "They're learning faster than we can change." That was when disaster struck. Jiangsu, piloting a small fighter to provide close support for the Iron Thunder, found himself targeted by 3 Devourer ships at once. Their combined fire created a web of energy that he couldn't dodge. "Jiangsu, get out of there!" Deho shouted, but instead of retreating, Jiangsu did something that shocked both fleets. He flew his small fighter directly into the path of a Devourer energy beam that was aimed at a Corvani transport full of refugees. The fighter exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The Corvani transport survived. Silence filled the communication channels for several seconds. Then Veltar's voice came through, filled with something the Corvani had rarely heard from their war captain. Amazement. He died for strangers. For Corvani, he had never met. The human fleet's response was immediate and fierce. Instead of being demoralized by the loss, they seemed to fight even harder. Ships that had been retreating suddenly turned and charged into the enemy formation. Weapons that had been conserving ammunition opened up with everything they had. The Devourers tried to analyze this new behavior, but it didn't follow any logical pattern. How could the loss of a single unit make the remaining forces more effective, instead of less? Their programming had no framework for understanding sacrifice for others. More human ships began arriving in response to the battle. Instead of fleeing when they saw the overwhelming odds, they joined the fight immediately. The reinforcements didn't even ask for tactical briefings. They simply saw humans and Corvani fighting together against a common enemy and added their weapons to the battle. "This is impossible," one of the Corvani officers said in wonder. "Your species sends more ships into a losing battle? This defies all military logic." "Logic has nothing to do with it," Deho replied, watching as a civilian cargo hauler modified its mining lasers to attack a Devourer ship. "When humans see people in trouble, we help. It's not logical. It's just who we are." The Devourer fleet began to falter. Their adaptive systems were designed to counter logical military thinking, but human behavior wasn't entirely logical. Ships with no military training attacked alongside veteran warships. Tactics changed not based on strategic analysis, but on emotional responses to battlefield events. Suman made a crucial observation. "Captain, the Devourer ships are showing system overloads. Their adaptive algorithms are consuming too much processing power trying to analyze our behavior patterns. Because they can't understand why we're acting this way," Deho realized. "They're machines. They don't understand concepts like sacrifice, loyalty, or fighting for strangers." Veltar had been listening to the human communications, and something fundamental changed in his understanding of their species. "Your people, you are not fighting for victory. You are fighting for each other." "Same thing, isn't it?" Deho replied. As the battle continued, the Corvani began to see something they had never witnessed before. An entire species that refused to abandon allies, even alien allies they had just met. Humans who had never seen a Corvani before were dying to protect Corvani refugees. The concept was so foreign to the Devourer's programming that their systems began making calculation errors. How could they predict the behavior of beings who acted against their own logical self-interest? How could they counter tactics that prioritized others' survival over victory? The tide of battle was beginning to turn, but the cost was high. Human ships were being destroyed, and brave pilots were dying. Yet for every ship that fell, two more seemed to appear, drawn to the battle by distress calls and emergency broadcasts. The galaxy was about to learn something about humanity that would change everything. But first, the battle had to be won. The battle had been raging for 2 hours, and the space around the damaged Corvani ship was filled with debris and energy discharges. 3 Devourer vessels had been destroyed, but at a terrible cost. 7 human ships had been lost, along with their brave crews. Kyung-min, a young engineer aboard the Harmony's Edge, had been analyzing the Devourer technology from the wreckage of destroyed ships. What he found changed everything. "Captain!" he called excitedly from his engineering station. "I figured out how their adaptive systems work." Deho hurried over to look at Kyung-min's data. The young man's eyes were bright with discovery, despite the chaos of battle around them. "The Devourers don't just adapt to our weapons and tactics," Kyung-min explained. "They try to create perfect counter-strategies for everything we do, but perfect solutions require complete information, and we're not giving them complete information." "What do you mean?" "We keep changing tactics randomly, right? So they never get enough data to create a perfect counter. Their systems keep trying to solve incomplete puzzles, which uses up massive amounts of processing power." Deho began to understand. "So if we could make the puzzles even more incomplete—" "Exactly. Instead of trying to beat them with superior firepower, we beat them with superior chaos. We make their own intelligence work against them." Kyung-min's discovery spread quickly through the combined fleet. The solution wasn't to outfight the Devourers. It was to outthink them by not thinking logically at all. All ships, this is Captain. Day-ho, he broadcast. New tactical directive. I want every ship to do something completely unexpected, something that makes no military sense whatsoever. The more illogical, the better. The response was immediate and beautiful in its insanity. The cargo hauler Lucky Break began flying backward while firing its mining lasers. The destroyer Thunder's Child started spinning in place like a top while launching missiles in all directions. A small courier ship began broadcasting human music at maximum volume while painting its hull with emergency flares. The Corvani watched in amazement as the human fleet transformed into what looked like complete chaos. But within that chaos was a pattern that only humans could understand, the pattern of people refusing to give up, no matter how hopeless things became. Jiwoo, commanding a squadron of mixed human and Corvani fighters, took the concept even further. All right, everyone, time to try something really crazy. Corvani pilots, I want you to forget everything you know about proper flying. This is madness, protested Thoklar from his heavy fighter. Corvani do not fly without discipline and formation. Today, you do, Jiwoo replied. Follow my lead, and don't think about what you're doing. Just react. What followed was the strangest dogfight in galactic history. Corvani pilots, raised on rigid formation flying and traditional tactics, began mimicking the wild, unpredictable maneuvers of their human wingmates. They flew like they were drunk, panicked, or completely inexperienced. But it worked. The Devourer fighters, programmed to counter skilled military pilots, couldn't adapt to opponents who flew like amateurs. Weapons that should have easily destroyed. The mixed squadron kept missing their targets. The chaos was so complete that the enemy targeting systems couldn't establish firing solutions. This is incredible, Thoklar laughed over the communication channel. I have never felt so free in a cockpit. Inspired by the human example, the Corvani began adding their own touches to the chaos. War Captain Veltar ordered the Iron Thunder to perform maneuvers that violated every principle of capital ship combat. The massive battleship began barrel-rolling like a fighter, firing its main guns while spinning. Our ancestors must think we have lost our minds, commented Borhan from the tactical station. Maybe we have, Veltar replied with a grin, and maybe that is exactly what we needed. The Devourer fleet was now visibly struggling. Their perfect formations had broken apart as their ships tried to respond to tactics that seemed to change. Every few seconds, energy beams fired at empty space where logic said targets should be. Missiles pursued phantom signatures created by sensors that couldn't process the chaotic data they were receiving. Dr. Minji, still treating wounded in the medical bay, made an observation that added another piece to the puzzle. Captain, I've been watching the Devourer behavior patterns. They're not just confused. They're frustrated. Machines can't feel frustration, Yuna pointed out. These machines can, Minji replied. Their programming is designed to solve problems and overcome obstacles. When they can't do that, it creates feedback loops in their systems. They're literally thinking themselves into overload. This insight spread through the fleet, and the humans began deliberately targeting the Devourer's problem-solving abilities. Ships would start an attack pattern, then abandon it halfway through. Weapons would charge up as if preparing to fire, then power down without shooting. Every action was designed to start a calculation in the enemy's computers without providing enough data to complete it. The effect was devastating. Devourer ships began moving erratically as their systems struggled with incomplete analyses. Some vessels stopped firing entirely, their weapons systems frozen by contradictory targeting. Data. But the humans weren't finished. Hagen, commanding the research vessel New Horizons, had an idea that was brilliant in its simplicity. All ships with communication arrays start broadcasting random signals at the Devourer fleet. Nonsense data, fake sensor readings, anything. That looks like information, but isn't. Soon the battlefield was flooded with false data. The Devourer's sensors, designed to absorb and analyze all available information, began trying to process terabytes of meaningless noise. They're adaptive. Algorithms started adapting to threats that didn't exist and creating counters for weapons that were never fired. Their processing capacity is reaching critical overload, reported Suman from the science station. If we can maintain this level of chaos for just a few more minutes, that's when the impossible happened. The largest Devourer ship, the one that had been coordinating the fleet's actions, suddenly went dark. Its weapons stopped firing, its shields collapsed, and it began drifting dead in space. What happened to it? Hewan asked in amazement. It thought itself to death, Kyungmin replied with wonder in his voice. Its central processing unit couldn't handle the logical contradictions anymore and shut down to prevent permanent damage. The rest of the Devourer fleet began following suit. One by one, the massive ships went silent as their adaptive systems overloaded. Some tried to retreat, but their navigation computers were too confused to plot coherent courses. They began flying, in circles or crashing into each other. Within an hour, the entire Devourer fleet was either destroyed or disabled. The battlefield that had seemed hopeless for the defenders was now littered with the wreckage of seemingly invincible machines. The communication channels filled with cheers from both human and Corvani crews. But Veltar's voice cut through the celebration with a tone of deep respect. "Humans of the fleet," he said formally, "today you have shown the galaxy something unprecedented. You have defeated an enemy that we could not face. But more importantly, you have shown us a new way to think about impossible problems." Captain Day-Ho responded with equal formality. "We couldn't have done it without Corvani courage and strength. Your people taught us how to stand firm when everything seems lost. And your people taught us how to find hope when no hope exists," Veltar replied. "This is a lesson the Corvani will never forget." As the combined fleet began rescue operations and damage assessment, a profound change was taking place. The Corvani, who had always viewed humans as weak and technologically inferior, now saw them as something else entirely. They were problem solvers who refused to accept that any problem was unsolvable. They were a species that found strength, not in individual power, but in their ability to inspire others to exceed their own limitations. They had taken a proud warrior race and convinced them to fight like madmen, and somehow it had worked. The victory over the Devourers was more than just a military triumph. It was proof that the galaxy's newest species brought something unique and valuable to the cosmic community, something that might be needed again in the challenges to come. 3 days after the battle, the joint human-Corvani fleet floated in space while repair crews worked around the clock. The Iron Thunder was still badly damaged, but it was alive. More importantly, so were the thousands of Corvani refugees it carried. Captain Day-Ho walked through the Corvani ship's corridors, which had been partially modified to accommodate human visitors. The emergency lighting had been replaced with normal illumination, and the air no longer carried the metallic smell of battle damage. Corvani and human crew members worked side by side, sharing tools and techniques that neither species had known before. In the medical bay, Dr. Minji was teaching Corvani doctors about human medical techniques while learning about Corvani biology. The wounded were recovering faster than anyone had expected, partly due to the combination of both species' medical knowledge. Dr. Minji called one of her Corvani patients, a young warrior named Kethvar. "Is it true that humans risked their lives for us even though we had never met?" Minji looked up from her medical scanner. "It's true, but humans don't think of it as risking our lives. We think of it as helping people who need help." "But why? What did you gain from helping strangers?" The question had been asked many times over the past few days by Corvani of all ages and ranks. Minji had learned to give a simple answer that they could understand. "We gained the knowledge that when we needed help, someone would help us too. When you build a galaxy where people help each other, everyone becomes stronger." Kethvar considered this carefully. "In Corvani culture, we help our clan and our allies. But the concept of helping everyone, this is new to us." "It was new to humans once too," Minji replied. "We had to learn it over thousands of years of history. Sometimes we still forget and have to learn it again." Meanwhile, in the engineering sections, a revolution was taking place. Taewon and the Corvani engineers had discovered that their technologies worked better when combined. Human adaptability merged with Corvani durability created systems that neither species could have built alone. "Your people think in straight lines," Carden observed as she watched Taewon modify a power coupling. "Logical progressions from problem to solution. But you also think in curves and spirals, finding paths that we would never consider." "And your people build things to last forever," Taewon replied. "Human technology breaks down and needs constant repair. But Corvani technology endures. If we combine endurance with adaptability, we create something better than either species could make alone," Carden finished. "This concept applies to more than just engineering, does it not?" On the bridge of the Harmony's edge, Captain Daeho was receiving reports from across the galaxy. Word of the battle had spread faster than anyone had expected, carried by automated communication relays and long-range sensors that had detected the fight. "Captain," Jiho reported, "we're receiving messages from dozens of species. Everyone wants to know how we defeated the Devourers. What are we telling them?" "The truth. That we confused them into overloading their own systems by acting unpredictably." Daeho smiled. "I bet that's causing some interesting discussions in alien military academies." War Captain Veltar's voice came through the communication system. "Captain Daeho, I request permission to address both our crews." Permission granted. Veltar's image appeared on screens throughout both ships. The massive Corvani leader looked different than he had before the battle. The rigid formality was still there, but it was tempered with something new: respect and understanding. "Warriors of both species," he began. 3 days ago, we fought together against an enemy that had never been defeated. Today, we are alive because we learned to fight not as humans or Corvani, but as allies." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "For generations, Corvani have believed that strength comes from individual power and rigid discipline. We saw humans as weak because you are smaller and less physically powerful than we are. We were wrong." The Corvani crew listened intently. It was rare for their war captain to admit error, and unprecedented for him to praise an alien species. "Human strength does not come from your bodies. It comes from your refusal to accept that any problem cannot be solved. It comes from your willingness to help others, even when logic says you should save yourselves. It comes from your ability to inspire others to become better than they believed possible." Veltar's voice grew stronger. The Corvani High Command must hear this message. The galaxy must understand what humanity brings to our community. You are not just another species among many. You are teachers, showing us new ways to think about old problems. When the transmission ended, Borum approached Captain Deho with a concerned expression. Sir, I've been monitoring galactic communication networks. This battle is causing major changes in how species interact with each other. What kind of changes? The Zephyrian Trade Alliance wants to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity. The Stellar Confederation is asking for human advisors to help with their defensive strategies. And the Corvani High Command has issued an official statement calling humans the species that teaches strength through unity. Deho felt a mixture of pride and worry. All this because we answered a distress call? All this because we showed the galaxy a different way to solve problems, Una corrected. The question is, are we ready for this kind of attention? Before Deho could answer, Hagen's voice came through the ship's communication system. Captain, you need to see this. I'm patching a message through from Earth Command. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen, her expression mixing amazement with concern. Captain Deho, your actions have created what our diplomats are calling a paradigm shift in galactic politics. Every major species is requesting meetings with human representatives. Are we in trouble, Admiral? Quite the opposite. You've made humanity the most sought-after ally in the galaxy. But that comes with responsibilities we may not be prepared for. Over the following days, those responsibilities became clear. The Corvani formally requested a permanent alliance with humanity, offering to share their military technology in exchange for human tactical innovation. Other species followed suit, each wanting to learn the human way of solving impossible problems. But perhaps the most important change was happening on a smaller scale. Throughout both fleets, humans and Corvani were learning from each other in ways that went beyond technology and tactics. Young Ho, the destroyer captain, found himself teaching Corvani children how to play human games that had no winners or losers, a concept that fascinated the competitive alien youth. Thoklar, the Corvani pilot, was showing human engineers how Corvani meditation techniques could improve focus and decision-making under stress. Dr. Velkon, the Corvani medical officer, collaborated with Dr. Minji on papers that would revolutionize xenobiology by combining both species' understanding of alien physiology. These small exchanges, multiplied across hundreds of crew members, created something unprecedented in galactic history, a true cultural partnership between species that had almost nothing in common except their willingness to help each other. On the final day before the fleet separated to return to their home territories, Captain Deho and War Captain Veltar met in person one last time. "Your people have given mine a great gift," Veltar said formally. "You have shown us that there are many kinds of strength, and that the greatest strength comes from lifting others up. Your people gave us a gift too," Deho replied. "You showed us that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing what's right even when you are afraid." They clasped hands in the traditional human gesture of friendship, modified to accommodate Veltar's much larger grip. "The galaxy is watching what we do next," Veltar observed. "Then let's make sure we set a good example," Deho replied. As the human ships prepared to depart, carrying wounded Corvani who needed specialized medical treatment on human worlds, both species knew that something fundamental had changed. The galaxy was no longer a collection of separate species competing for resources and territory. It was becoming a community where the strong helped the weak, where different ways of thinking were valued instead of feared, and where the response To a cry for help was not calculation of profit and loss, but simply, "We're on our way." The SOS that had started everything was no longer just a distress call. It had become a declaration that in this galaxy, no one had to face their problems alone. Humanity had found its place among the stars not through conquest or superior technology, but by being exactly what they had always been, a species that believed everyone deserved help when they needed it. And the galaxy was about to become a much better place because of it.